Okay, so welcome back to episode 2. I know episode 1 didn't really cover much, but let's see if we can get the ball rolling. So in this session, we're just going to go over the UI and some of the tools and just kind of explain some of the reason for some of the different layouts and bits, just so that you get over that immediate kind of like, oh my god, there's a lot here, which definitely happens with a lot of 3D modeling applications, game engines, stuff like that. So firstly, don't worry, you literally can't break this. So like that kind of, oh my god, I don't know what to press. Don't worry about it. It's completely normal. There's a lot going on here. It's perfectly normal to be overwhelmed. So let's try and just help out a little bit and get you feeling a bit more comfortable. Firstly, these tools here, just ignore them. I've not used them in, like, I don't even remember. They're probably great, but we're not going to use them. Don't worry about them. Again, here, these are kind of going through some of your modes and stuff. Again, I don't use them. Don't worry about them. At the top here, we've got a few different things. So we kind of have like this bar, and then we have this bar. And here, this is kind of broken in. So you can see why it kind of feels complex. Here we have our file, edit, render, window, and help buttons. These are kind of like the same as any Windows app, you know, if you want to sort of save your files or export or quit, or later if we get to render and things, or if you want to kind of change your workspace, that's all there. That's kind of default application stuff. One of the really cool things about Blender is it's super versatile, and it's not quite an all-in-one package, but it does a lot more than some kind of other dedicated 3D modeling apps. And there's shortfalls and benefits to that, but generally you find a lot of people coming to Blender just because it's like a one package to do a lot of things, so it saves you having to learn lots of different applications and stuff. Ultimately, there's a few differences through some of these, so we can kind of click to modeling and you can see that kind of the UI's changed a little bit. We've got some different buttons, and if we went to kind of sculpting, you can see that there's other buttons and UV editing and all those types of things, and you can click through all of these. They're not going to really make a difference. This one might take a little minute to load depending on what you're doing. And okay, it's going to just let Blender have a little think here for a second. But it will come back hopefully. And these are kind of designed to help you do specific tasks. So for example, when we are looking at our kind of general topology and modeling, things like that, we might use layout and modeling. If we are going to look at some sculpting, then obviously sculpting mode. If we are going to be doing any UV editing, texturing, then we'd be in here. There we go, come back. If we're going to do any materials, if we're going to do any animation, and there's not really a lot different here. It's just the layout is different. It kind of gives us an idea of a bit more information about what's happening in the scene that's relevant to the task we're trying to do. And these we just won't go near, don't worry. So I'm just going to go back to layout. Here we have your mode. So Blender kind of has different modes for different things. So sculpting mode, when we were in sculpting, allows us to kind of brush on details onto the shapes. And then vertex and weight painting and texture painting is more complex. Don't worry about those. Edit mode is probably the one you're going to use the most, and it means that we can start to change the way this shape looks. So at the moment we can kind of move this shape, we can rotate the shape, but anything we do to it will be to the whole shape. So if we had like a spaceship and we just grabbed it and moved it, it would move the whole spaceship. Whereas if we wanted maybe to make a part of the spaceship a bit bigger or a bit smaller, or remove a piece or add some more detail, then we would need to edit this object. So we would need to go to edit mode with it selected. And now you can see that we can kind of select these different points on it, and we can always kind of move them around and stuff like that. If we went up here next to edit mode, we have this little blue square now, which is called vertex select, and that means that we can select these individual points on any shape, and these points are called vertexes or vertices. If we click next to them, we have an edge select, and now you can see that all the lines come up, and we can kind of click on any of these lines and we can move them around and we can do all sorts to them. And this one is called face select. So here you can see that it's kind of selecting all of the faces, all of the individual faces, and we could kind of make that bigger, we could rotate it, we could move it, we could add more detail to it, we could do lots of different things. And then we have these menus, which are kind of lots of different tools or for doing different tasks, and these will vary depending on the types of things we have selected, if we have anything selected at all, the type of mode we're in. There's a lot in there, don't worry. There's still some in there that I've never even used. And as you can see as we're going through, lots of actions or processes, whatever you want to call them in Blender, have shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts. So this is because I don't even know how many years ago it was now, when Blender kind of first started, it actually didn't have all of these buttons and everything, which sounds great, but everything was all keyboard shortcut, and it was just horrendous to use because if you didn't know what the key was, there was just no way of doing that job. Whereas now we kind of have a nice blend of UI, and we still got kind of like all these different shortcuts for everything, for as you get more comfortable with those jobs. Over here we have just kind of some general controls about how we move objects, how we control objects, how we select objects. By default, you're fine. Don't worry too much about any of these for now. Over here we have controls about or related to the viewport. So this is the viewport. This is the portal that we view our 3D world through. And we have kind of like a couple of drop down boxes about what we can see and touch. We have bits about kind of all of the gizmos. So here I have my navigation gizmo. If I turn that off, I don't have that. Active tools is somewhere. Active modifiers, I don't have any on. Active objects is none at the moment. And then I don't have any empties in there. Or lights. Well, I have a light and stuff, but it's not really doing anything. This one is kind of like my overlay. So at the moment I have my grid on, I have my floor on, I have all of my kind of axes, these yellow and these green and red lines, my scales, and obviously my cursor and all of those types of things. And you can kind of play with this if you like, but yeah, it's fine. You don't need to do anything at the moment. And here we have kind of some more overlays for when we start doing edit mode. And then we have our viewport, kind of the way in which our viewport looks. So if I click like this now, you can see that this box is now see-through. And as I kind of move around, you can see that I can see through it. If I go here, you can see that it's a bit more solid. Sorry about that, I was going a bit crazy. And if I go here, then later when we're on this one, if we've added textures and colors and things, we can start to see how that will look different. And then here in the final render preview, you can kind of see it's like it adds shading and things. Where'd that light go? So that light's over there, and we can see that it's a bit darker on this side than there, so it kind of works. Again, don't worry too much about these. This is probably the one you're going to use the most, and maybe a bit of this one. Don't worry too much about that. And then really here you have your scene collections. So this shows me everything that's in my file at the moment. I have a camera, I have my cube, and I have a light over there. And I can kind of turn them on and off, and I can kind of see where they're at and access the properties for each shape. And then here we have all of the kind of mini menus for the object that we have selected or are seeing. So at the moment you can see I've got the cube, and I've got a lot more detail about this cube and what it's doing and how it looks and all of its kind of key properties. And that's because at the moment I've got on the object menu. If I were to click to a completely different one, you can see that everything in there changes, and you can just click these. Like there's not going to break anything. You know, it's absolutely fine. And if it does go horribly wrong, you just close it and open it back up again. You've not lost anything. As kind of we can decide which rendering engine we're using. We can decide the output formats and all of those types of things. And you will get more familiar with these as we move through, hopefully. So, and then right at the bottom here we have the animation play timeline. That's the one, which we will be playing with in a few more episodes. Don't worry too much about that. So, in terms of moving around and navigating, Blender has quite a simple, in comparison to others, it's not too bad navigation style. If you want to move around, you just press in your mouse wheel. I don't know why that's come up as left click, because that's my mouse scroll, and I'm just holding that down and moving around, and you can see that I'm now kind of moving around. If you want to zoom in and out, you can just scroll in and out, and if you want to pan, you hold shift and drag, and you can see that that's now. So a lot of the time you're kind of moving like this. Oh my god, that's a lot. And kind of, you know, doing all of this. So if I were to be moving one of these, I might want to kind of move it down and then see how that looks over there, and move it in a bit, and then, you know, scroll and just move it a little bit. Those types of things. Okay. You're probably wondering how on earth I did that. So one of the great things about Blender, just undo that, is that a lot of the hotkeys they just make sense. They're the letters that you would expect, and you know, it just makes the whole job a bit easier. I'm going to just flick back into object mode very quickly, and rather than just always having to go up here, I can just press tab, and you can see that I'm now in object mode, and if I press tab again, I'm in edit mode. So tab just allows you to switch between these two very easily, and it does that, and it focuses on those two because they're the ones that you will use the most. And if I just go to object mode, if I want to grab and move this, I press G to grab it, and I'm now not holding down anything on my mouse or anything like that, and I can move it anywhere I want. And if I have grabbed the wrong thing, or I've moved it the wrong way, and I go, oh no, I don't want it there, I want to go again, and just press escape, and it will just go back to where it is. Now, one thing I might want to do is grab this and just move it along this green line. And that might sound weird at the moment, but sometimes we just want to move an object in a very specific way. So if I were to press G, because I know I want to grab it, and then I can tell from this green line that this up here is Y, okay? And I can tell this red one is X. So I know I want to move it on Y, so I press G and then Y, and then it, no matter where I move it, it always just moves along there. And if I press X, yep, it moves on X and not on Y. And if I press Z, yeah, you guessed it, it just moves on Z. And then if I press left mouse click, it stays, or if I undo that, it goes back. Now, as well as grabbing, which is super useful, I might want to rotate this object. So I might want to move it here and then rotate it slightly, and the button for rotate is R. So you press R and you can rotate it. Now, the big problem with rotate is it's really hard to tell which angle you're rotating on, because this is kind of all over the place. So if I wanted to rotate this as though it was kind of spinning this way, then it would spin on the X axis. So we have to imagine that this red line is going straight through there, and then it's like a kebab and we're just kind of like spinning it. So if I now press rotate for R and press X, you can see that that line's now through it. And now you can see that that only rotates this way. And if I press Y, it would only go this way. And if I press Z, it would only go this way. And if I press escape, it will go back to how it is. And now last but not least for this video, if I want to change the scale of this, so I might want it bigger, I might want it smaller, then I'll just press S and we can see this little dotted line comes out. And the bigger I make the line, the bigger the object, and the smaller I make the line, the smaller the object. And once again, you guessed it, I can press this, I can press an axis, and then it will only do those ones, right? So you can already see that just by combining these very easy and basic transforms, that I can kind of make a lot of different shapes, a lot of different kind of objects. And I'm not even in edit mode yet, I'm just kind of doing the overall transform. One thing just to bear in mind, I know I said it was the last thing, it is about scale, so technically it's still the same. Blender's scale works on kind of an adjustable length, and that sounds unnecessarily complex, but what it means is this little object, this little orange dot in the middle, is the middle of our object. It's the kind of, we call it the origin, we'll talk about it later. When we scale, when we press S for scale, we are given a kind of adjustable sensitivity based on the cursor and that orange point. So if I have my cursor really close to this orange point when I press S, I have a really small, so I'm barely moving the mouse there, and you can see, so it kind of very easily gets too big, and it can be really hard to kind of just do really small kind of changes. Whereas if I move my mouse like all the way over here and press S, you can see that that line is really long now, and I can do much finer scale. So I can still do the big ones, and the great thing, whoever programmed this at Blender for this just to keep scrolling is a legend. You deserve a pay rise. So that kind of just gives me a bit of control. It's just something to bear in mind if you're scaling. So that's everything for this very first intro video. Hopefully you're already feeling slightly less overwhelmed. Feel free to kind of just have a look around things, you know, click on things and just, you know, grab things, move things around. You can't break it, you know, just if in doubt, just go file, no, general, don't save. There we go, and we're back exactly where we were. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for listening.